Jay. With me today is my co-pilot.
Mark Ellis.
And I'm Tyler Holt. And also joining us today is our special guest.
Patricia Smith.
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, we are back after taking a 2-week break, one for reading week and one for the week after reading week. Because, you know, when you want to take a break, you want to take one hard. How was everyone's reading break? Yeah, no, I'm blending words today.
It was nice, relaxing, calming, and never long enough.
Never long enough. That's a good. Yeah. How about yours, Patricia?
I didn't get one.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, you're in the teaching curriculum. So,
Yeah.
What did you spend your reading week doing? What would have been your reading week doing?
The equivalent of reading week for us, during your reading week, I was finishing up assignments. That was the last week of classes. And then last week we had our foundations week. So that was workshops and stuff like that. That was a little bit more like our reading week, so a little bit lighter. And then we started placement this week. So that's been loads of fun and very different.
And what exactly is foundations?
So Foundations Week is basically a week where the Ontario College of Teachers came and did a workshop. The Ontario Federation of Teachers came and Teacher Federation came and did a workshop. So it was just a little bit different, helpful workshops, getting ready for our practicum rather than classes.
All right, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I basically just kind of sat on my ass and did some reading, watched a couple of movies. And actually, that's what we're going to, exactly what we're going to be talking about a little bit tonight. So, Patricia.
Yes.
It occurred to me after having a heated discussion about Harry Potter. So just to clarify, first of all, I'm a film nerd. I love films. I quite like them, and I have quite a few opinions about films.
Nerd.
And Patricia, you are a long-standing fan of Harry Potter, right?
Long-standing fan. I first read the first book myself at the age of 7, so I could see the first movie, because that was the rule in our house. You had to read the book before you could see the movie. So I read a chapter book at the age of 7, so I could watch this movie, and fell in love with it, grew up with it, got my own wand when I was 11, whole thing.
Tyler, you're about to be ripped apart.
Every single birthday from age 8 to 12, I think, has been Harry Potter themed. I went to the opening night of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was my 9th birthday party, and we booked it 4 months in advance.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
That's pretty crazy. 4 months.
Oh, yeah. We booked it 4 months in advance because it was going to be on opening night, so we could pick the seats, have them reserved for us, and just have a great time.
Okay. All right.
And then they changed the whole thing, and I cried afterwards.
And so have you seen all of the movies then in theaters?
I saw every single one in theaters. I saw the 6th movie. I actually saw in England the day after it came out because we were in France the day it came out, and we didn't want to see it dubbed. So we waited a day.
Okay. All right. Well, that's my experience with Harry Potter, just so everyone knows, is that I've read 3 of the books. I got most of the way through Azkaban, so I haven't read quite all 3 of them. And I've seen all of the movies multiple times. So I've seen the first movie maybe 3 times, and then all of the other movies roughly twice. Not for all of those second viewings necessarily sitting down and actually wanting to watch them, but as maybe someone else was watching them and I was in the same room. So, yeah, that's been my experience with Harry Potter. And one of the things that's occurred to me is that it's this huge social, cultural phenomenon in the arts, that it's just such a huge franchise. Blockbuster hits. There's people continuously coming out to watch these movies. Great distribution after it went to DVD and Blu-ray. And I don't know, Mark, would you say that how would you measure the cultural impact of Harry Potter? Because it's big, but I wouldn't say it's as big as something like Star Wars, right?
Not yet.
I think it's getting pretty close.
But Star Wars is still going. Yeah, you would say that. It's getting pretty close.
And so is
Okay.
Harry Potter.
You're right.
Star Wars is starting to get going again.
Starting to get going again,
It was static for 20 years or however long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you still had some. Oh yeah. Okay. In between, you mean in between the third and the first movie, or the third and the fourth movie?
That too. I was thinking of the gap between The Force Awakens and the rest of the films.
Oh. Well.
But there's a significant gap between each section there.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about between Empire Strikes, I mean, Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, yeah, definitely. But when did Return of the Sith or whatever, or
Right.
the third movie in the chronology?
Not as large of a, not as small of a gap as Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, well, definitely. When did
Yeah.
Hollows finally part 2? That was like 2011
11 or 12?
or 12. Yeah,
Yeah.
that soon. Okay.
I think like 10, 11, or 12. Like I was in high school.
Yeah,
so-
okay, that's fair. So, what we have come here to discuss then is that from a film standpoint, my argument is that Harry Potter movies are not that great. In fact, I would dare well say that some of them outrightly just suck, are not good movies. Some of them are good movies. I'm going to say right off the bat that I think, just so that everyone knows at home, I think Prisoner of Azkaban is a good movie. It is a good movie. It is cinematically sound, has great scenes, really good cuts, and even though from a plot standpoint things don't quite make sense some of the times, the way that they cinematically pull off some of the things and the way that they stay true to certain themes with colors throughout and use tracking shots, for instance, to represent different more narrative themes within the movie are very consistent and brilliantly done. So that's a good movie. Prisoner of Azkaban. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Also, I don't really despise any of these movies, per se. With one exception, I do despise one particular movie, and that's just my gut reaction to how much how much people love this movie and how just not good of a movie it is. But before we start, I thought it might be fun. Before we get tearing at each other's necks, and Mark, your role here is basically going to be
Calling the police.
yeah. Your role is to chime in with the voice of reason to keep us level.
Do my best.
So before we get started tearing each other apart, what I wanted to start with is giving you the alternate titles for the Harry Potter movies.
Are these the? Oh wait. You came up.
Yeah,
with
I came up with
oh,
these.
okay.
These,
you gave.
these are what the Harry Potter movies should be called.
Oh, gosh.
So Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone, depending on which one you are. I would say Philosopher's because I'm a old school alchemist. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone ought to have been called Harry Potter and the Island of Misfit Children.
Seriously?
Yes, that's exactly what it should have been called.
The island?
The Island of
It's
Misfit
not even
Children.
on an island.
That first shot that you see of Hogwarts, totally on an
It's
island.
not on an island. It's on
with
a black
giant
lake.
ass bridge.
It's a lake.
Still.
It's totally a lake.
You meet
with a giant
Ron,
squid.
who is only slightly more of a redheaded stepchild than Hermione is. And you meet Hagrid, who is
Just
the
because the
most
Misfits
redheaded
find-
stepchild of them all.
Just because the misfits find themselves like
All
friends
thrown
does
together,
not mean that
exactly.
they're all misfits.
Harry Potter and the Island of Misfit Children. The second movie, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, should have been called Harry Potter and the Chamber of Shit Trying to Kill Students, but oh well, Hogwarts will stay open anyways.
That one's not bad.
Okay, yeah, that was a little bit questionable, but
5 times during that movie, we see Professor McGonagall say directly, like, Hogwarts needs to be closed, or you hear Dumbledore say, Hogwarts is no longer safe, and they're just like, oh yeah, we'll fucking do this.
but they have the governors that have to make that call.
Oh, uh-huh. What a great fucking institution. We'll get to that later. The third movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, should have been called Harry Potter and the Time Turner that would have been way more useful later in the movies.
Yeah, she realized there was a plot hole with that, and that's why they destroyed them in the 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Harry Potter and the Time Turner that would have been a fuck ton more useful later in the movies. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire should have been called Harry Potter and the Murder Olympics.
Oh.
Alternate title is Harry Potter and the Hunger Games.
Oh gosh, no, they weren't trying to kill each other. It just happened that one of them was
They just all
controlled.
happened to get gobbled by dragons.
They were just allowed to, because I clearly didn't see any rules that were stopping them. Were there any? I don't know.
Rip.
There was no opportunity for them to kill each other except for the third task.
What about the first one?
Those were dragons killing each other, or killing
Right.
them.
What about the second one? I mean,
Well, they had a goal. Why would you bother yourself with like?
Why would you not
'Cause
drown
two-
someone from a neighboring school from a different country where we've already established that all of these wizards are racist as shit?
Because
I mean,
they are good
cold-blooded
people at
murder is a little bit much for
'Cause
like
they're
high school children, and I would.
and-
You
never
would think
really,
so, wouldn't you?
I would think
But
so.
the rest of the movies would disagree with you, Mark. Okay, so the next movie,
man.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, should have been named Harry Potter and the Wizard Government because exactly what this series needs is bureaucracy.
Yeah, there was a lot more focus on that than the Order of the Phoenix, but that's not as catchy of a title.
Seriously, that entire movie is exposition, all of it. That's the most. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince should have been called Harry Potter and the fucking awesome potion book that Harry only got because Ron just wants nice things.
Yeah.
The
but they-
entire movie wouldn't have made sense if Ron would have been like, "Oh well, I guess my entire life is shit, so I'll just take the shit book.
But he always
Go on, Harry. You can have the nice book.
he
We're best
always got
friends.
he always got hand me down. So
Instead,
of course he
let's
wants the new
fist
one.
fight over this book, Harry. Back the fuck off. I'll knock your little cupboard teeth back into your house."
They didn't fist fight.
No, they didn't, but they had a little bit of a tussle in the movie. They kind of like, it was a gag. But the fact that the entire movie kind of, we'll go on to that later.
I feel like we're gonna have a lot to go on to later. We'll try to keep this to an hour.
Also,
no promises.
okay, so this is part of the title, which is subtitled. So Harry Potter and the fucking awesome potion book is also subtitled. Also, why the fuck are the modern textbooks wrong about how to make the potions? And Snape, as a high school student, was able to figure it all out. You know what I would have done if I was Snape? I would have corrected all the textbooks, published my own potion textbook, and then fucking Lockharted my shit out of Hogwarts.
Oh god.
I don't know about your last analogy there, but yes, printing textbooks is incredibly lucrative.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it should have been like, it would have been so much harder. But anyways.
And Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows should have been named Harry Potter and the Camping Trip plus one marriage.
It was the marriage before the camping trip.
And Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2 should have been called Harry Potter and the Camping Trip Part 2.
But they barely were camping
Plus
in
a
the second
war.
one. They were barely camping in
No.
the second one.
So many tense scenes. Come on. They're
Not
in the
the
forest
second
all the
one.
time. Yeah.
No, they left Shell Cottage, and they went to Gringotts, and then they jumped on a dragon's back, ended on and then they went to Hogsmeade.
When you're midway camping is you go out to the general store and then you hit at the local pub.
No.
Yeah, so
Okay,
No, we're not gonna get into the camping discussion again.
Those are two movies that I didn't think were necessarily bad movies but bored me to tears. Is the Deathly Hallow movies is just because they're camping. Okay,
That's
I guess
because
I'll watch this. They're going after Horcruxes. This seems like it, as an important thing in the series, should have been mentioned sooner.
It was
Nah. All right.
in the
so,
sixth book. It was all what it was
in the
about.
sixth book. Oh wow. I'm sorry.
Well,
in the
when they
sixth book.
that was earlier than the movie, than the seventh movie, but it was. It's a dark and dangerous thing that you're not gonna tell 14 or 12-year-olds about.
Except for Harry, who is like the chosen one.
And they did come across a Horcrux in the second one, but it was foreshadowing for the Horcrux stuff later on.
Sorry, I got a text. I'm being bad.
Yeah.
So
Get on that.
now we're
meter.
going to do some actual stuff. And I think I'm going to start with my magnum opus here. I'm going
Oh,
to start
boy.
with the strongest one.
Oh, the
And this is the
masterpiece.
movie that I have the biggest gripe with. Patricia taking a nice, long, hard slug from her Dr. Pepper, readying herself for this. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a sip at my Irish whiskey. I hope you can hear that, audience. I'm doing a little bit of ASMR for you here right now.
If you're into whiskey drinking,
I'd say that like sipping and slurping could do an ASMR response. I would definitely.
Your point.
It's kind of like whispering in someone's
yeah,
ear.
we're looking for the magnum opus. The
Magnum
masterpiece
opus.
side.
So
I'm wondering which one you're
the
attacking
first Harry Potter movie
Seriously?
is the worst Harry Potter movie out of all of them, and is not a
Why?
good movie at all.
Why?
is not a good movie. So the
No.
biggest thing, the first thing, so I've said that I've watched all of these movies twice. So I watched the first movie, and I think the first time I watched the movie was with a girlfriend of mine. And we sat down and we watched it. She was also the one who provided me with a couple of the different Harry Potter books to read, and those were great to read. But when I went back to go and rewatch the first Harry Potter movie, it was after I had read the book. And so this gives me
Yeah.
actually a little bit more understanding of exactly how much narrative they decided to pack into this movie. The pacing of the movie, of the first Harry Potter movie, the pacing is absolutely fucked up. You are, from the beginning of that movie until about the end, you are going at an absolute breakneck speed. Just information and exposition and scenes and shots and moving on. So it's not just the shots that are quick and the scene transitions that are crazy. It's also the fact that you're moving so quickly that no one has any time to fucking breathe. And now that kind of makes some sense to me because you're adapting a whole novel. You know, the first Harry Potter movie is a little small. However, that makes for a bad movie. That is the movie's number one critical failure, I believe, is that the pacing is so terrible. The worst pacing, I think, that I have ever seen in any movie. And the Harry Potter series continue to suffer from this from the first movie to the next. Not as in a severe sense. But definitely the first one is exemplary and how terrible the passage of time is in the Harry Potter movies.
Well, you don't really want to just show scenes of them doing schoolwork. So they have to kind of like cut it to all the exciting parts. So yes, in like a whole year passes in a very short amount of time. They spend a decent amount of time before he gets to the Wizarding World. So like the last 2 weeks of, or the August gets all jumbled up into like a good amount of time, and then you have to introduce the whole world. So they spent like a long time on like the first week of classes where like, oh, this is what potions and Snape looks like. Oh, this is what having transfiguration with McGonagall looks like. Oh, now we're gonna have a flying lesson. Oh, and we also get to introduce you to the Quidditch team concept. So like there's a lot to go on, and you can't show Quidditch quickly, so it takes a long time on that. So other things have to go quickly.
Okay, so here are my two other gripes with the series as a whole, but particularly the first movie, is that it is not only fails as a movie, but also fails as an adaptation, where they do a successful form of adaptation in putting all of the essential parts of the movie, of the book, into the movie. There are too many points in the book that are essential to the novel narrative that get put into the movie. You do not need all of the points that are made within the book, nor all of the characters. Like the Quidditch team captain, don't fucking need him. All of Quidditch, and I think I would also argue almost all of the Dursleys could have been completely cut out of Harry Potter, and except for maybe a couple of different scenes and flashes where you're seeing Harry maybe grab the snitch or whatever. But I think that Quidditch absolutely plays like third fiddle to everything else that's happening in the series.
Thing. It's one of it later becomes one of his memories that he tries to make a Patronus with. Like, it's so important to Harry as a, like, it's the first sport that you get to play in the Wizarding World that's not like a normal Muggle sport, so it's special to the Wizarding World, so it's more.
But it's the same
to
thing
that.
as that, like, one of the things that Batman spends most of his time doing, and one of his passions, is working with Wayne Industries and going to all the business meetings and being able to set up an infrastructure for Gotham that helps everyone. But that's not in the fucking comics because it doesn't have any sort of leeway on the story. So showing Harry Potter and his favorite fucking thing, which is Quidditch, has nothing to do with the diegesis of the story, which is the ongoing world and the very important parts that are like gears churning in a machine, like Voldemort coming back. Quidditch has nothing to do with the overarching story. It's very much focused on one characteristic of one character that doesn't contribute to the overarching story. The only thing that is even slightly relevant to the plot that happens in the Quidditch tournament is when the professor who does the Defense Against the Dark Arts starts fucking with Harry, and there's the deception that happens where the readers think that it's Snape.
Yeah.
However, that scene wasn't played off very well at all in the movie.
What
In
do
the
you
book, it was
mean?
done well because it doesn't focus well on Snape and how in the book it says that his lips were moving. Also, that fucking
It
pisses me
did.
off because how they make so much emphasis on using wands in that movie, and bitches can just use magic just by saying words, and they can just say words
They're
quietly.
adults. They can do. Oh, man. They don't need
But
that
no,
much,
because
but,
motherfucking Hermione Granger, little frizzle-headed, red-headed
who read
stepchild.
everything.
Yeah, but she's still a first-year student, can counteract the defense against the dark arts, or at least to some degree stabilize.
Eye contact. That's what happened. She caused a fire on Snape's robes because she thought it was Snape. Snape trying to put out his robes, he broke eye contact, so the protection anti-jinx was not working well. But all the kerfluffle of trying to put out the fire knocked Quirrell off the back of his seat.
Yeah.
So he broke eye contact. So therefore the broom was no longer trying to buck him off. So Harry could climb back on.
Right. So I know that from reading the book, but watching the scene, it's
see it
not
in the
done well, and
scene.
it's a complete plot hole to the magic of the world that fucking little Hermione Granger can conjure fucking fire onto Snape's cloak. First
Yes,
of all,
Bluebell
Snape.
flames.
It's just
Okay, Tyler, there's a few things we got to go over here.
Sure.
One, that's like a 0th level spell. If I'm talking in D&D terms, it's going to be the easiest.
But she's
shit a
still
wizard
doing
could
it
do.
without a wand.
No, she has a wand.
She doesn't use her
Yes,
wand.
she does.
Not in the movie. She doesn't.
Yes, Loomis.
Yeah,
She
I'm
does.
sorry,
She
Tyler.
totally does.
Sorry, Tyler. I'm 99% sure she
99% sure that
we
she
can,
uses
we can
her
go
wand.
watch this movie, but I'm pretty darn sure she does.
She does. She taps the robes with her wand,
All right.
which, by the way, is not actually
Possibly
how you cast
I'm
Bluebell
incorrect.
Flames.
However,
but whatever.
in this argument, it doesn't even matter to my overarching point, which is this is the most important part of this, in regards to Quidditch, this is the most important Quidditch thing that happens in regards to plot in the first movie. All the rest of the bullshit didn't have to happen.
But
It
it's
just
where
didn't
Harry
make any
finally
sense.
finds his place in the wizarding world. He finds something he is good at. He's sitting there the whole time going, I have no clue what any of this is about. Apparently, I'm a famous wizard. I don't fit in anywhere. Oh my goodness, I am the youngest seeker in a century. I feel important.
Which
I now have
works
self-worth.
great in an analysis of the story from the novel part. But if we're going to be talking about that's the importance of Quidditch to this character in the first book, there's not nearly enough time spent. Because to make a point well concerning that sort of topic, that a certain amount of belongedness, the movie should have just been about Quidditch then. And then the point would have gone across. Everything else is distracting from the fact that Harry fucking Potter, right? The baby that killed Satan, basically, is playing Quidditch. It doesn't make any sense
And
in the
he's
overarching
amazing
narrative.
at it.
Doesn't matter how great he is at it. Well, okay, I'll give you this. That's the only good thing he's at. The only thing that he's good at in most of everything.
Being courageous and daring and putting himself before others.
Yeah,
Boy.
being an idiot and throwing himself in front of spells in stupid situations. But I mean, okay, we'll get to that a little bit later, how that is an absolute plot device. But yeah, so Quidditch
boy.
and also the Dursleys. So
Wait. Are you gonna let him be done with Quidditch, or are you gonna finish destroying him on it, or do you want me to do it?
No,
I'm not even that passionate about Harry Potter, but
fine,
like,
you take a stab.
Okay,
Go
no,
ahead.
do
you're saying
you
some
have a
things that I'm like,
justification for
I have
Quidditch
an
being such
absolute
a prevalent
justification
portion
for Quidditch.
in the series?
That Quidditch is talked about in every single book, and if they wanted to include it in any of the movies, which there are important scenes that happen, like he gets hit by a Dementor and falls
the
off, and
Dementor and
other random
yeah.
shit happens while he's playing Quidditch.
And
If
more
they don't
than should have
include it
happened
in
in
the
the
first movie, are they just going to flashback and be like, oh yeah, Harry Potter was a great seeker in the first movie. You missed that? Oh well.
And there's so much more that should have happened at Quidditch matches, but they decided later on they were more minor things, but it was big.
But him being a good Quidditch player doesn't really play into except for in one
Him being
instance,
good
which is
doesn't
that
matter.
he's really good on a broom running away from dragons. That's probably the only
Yes,
plot
but-
point
and-
that makes any single sense. If he was fighting Voldemort and other wizards on his broom, and that's how they did combat in this world, kind of like jousting, then it would make a whole bunch of sense. But Quidditch is just a sport, and now in the books, it does contribute to world building, and J.K.
Yeah.
Rowling does create a wonderful, great world. But that's one big thing that they could easily cut out of the books that would allow it to flow better, and they would be able to spend more time on very much more important things in the book.
Well,
Or in the movies.
In the first movie, they didn't actually cut much at all.
Which
They-
is a shame because the movie was 2 hours and 39 minutes.
The first movie.
The first movie is 2
Lovely.
hours and 39
That's
minutes.
great.
That's a fucking behemoth of a movie.
Well,
And it still had a breakneck speed where
It's a
whole bunch of
whole
really
world.
foundational things. Right, but you
And
see, the
everything-
movies aren't. So you're either going to try and build an entire world in a movie, which you can absolutely do. I'm going to say that the Lord of the Rings films don't really have very great characters. They have very iconic characters and characters that you can definitely fall in love with. But what people really love about Tolkien's work is the world. And that's what Tolkien really loved about his work is he was a world builder, not a person who built very in-depth characters. Except for maybe in the case of the relationship between Frodo and Sam. Now, so if you're going to have something like that, then you're going to forsake or ignore characters. So if you're going to be saying the world of Harry Potter is great and that's where the focus is, that's great. Then that's what the movie should be about, is that you're focusing on the world. And again, J.K. Rowling built a great world. But if you're trying to build a fantastic world and not focus, and then also try and focus on the characters, you're going to be putting too many of your eggs in too many different baskets. You're not going to be able to create a cohesive narrative, and things are going to get glossed over, and you're not going to be able to give the audience the kind of investment that you need in certain characters to make conflicts meaningful. And one of the biggest things in the movies that I think is a huge failing is Ron and Hermione's love story is one of the worst romances that I have ever written because of just how forced it is.
To be fair, even like, yeah, they didn't really. It wasn't really the main focus of A Sense of a Love Story, for all the books either. It wasn't a main focus. It was more the type of love story. It's like, oh yep, he's mad at her, she's mad at him. That was the main part of it. I feel like the one that got missed a little bit more in the movies, which is unfortunate because it was so good in the books, was more Harry and Ginny's love story, especially in the 6th movie. That could have been done way better. And unfortunately, if you hadn't read the book, you were kind of...
Sorry, which movie was this again? Where this took place?
Half-Blood Prince was
Okay.
when Ginny and Harry were supposed to start dating, have this wonderful, lovely relationship with, like, afternoons with pumpkin juice by the lake and walks and, like, great talking. And he had the time of his life.
And that would have been great,
But that was so missed.
that would have taken such a drastic,
Yeah.
drastic change of pace
And the tone.
mood and
Yeah.
tone in the film. Now, had the films taken a better focus on the characters themselves of Harry and his kind of displacement and the wonderment that he kind of finds in the world, and looked more directly at the world through Harry Potter's eyes, then the world would have maybe fallen into place better. But the
would have
movie
been
isn't
so
concerned
small.
with that. It's concerned with taking you to almost like a theme park, which makes a lot of sense in the bedtime story-like tale that J.K. Rowling begins with. And there's definitely a lot to be said about how her writing evolves over time. But the movies don't change focus well enough. It continues to be this welcome to Harry Potter land type movie where it's like, here you are, here are your friends, let's go on an adventure. And none of it gets explained well enough that none of the conflicts in the movie, I would say, are really meaningful. In the books, I would say that that's not the case. But when Dobby dies at the end of the movies, that didn't really get me. He's
were
seen like 3 or 4
heartbroken.
times.
He should have been seen more, but, like, everybody knew, like, they still knew what role he had in Harry's life, and, like...
Probably the deaths that got me the most, that it didn't even register to me on an emotional level, but on an intellectual level, I'm like, oh, well, that's very important, was Sirius Black's deaths.
Yep. Father figure lost.
And one of the twins.
Fred.
They weren't important enough.
They were so important.
No, they really
They
didn't
were the
do a
comedic
lot.
relief.
They
through
were
all
great
this.
comedic relief, but I didn't need their names. Fred and George?
Yes.
Okay, which one died, Fred?
Fred.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, that's sad.
You know, the other one, George
But
lost
it makes
his
a
ear.
lot of sense to kill off a third-rank character to try and make you feel bad for the Weasleys.
They lost so much.
Yeah, in their
Bill-
house, which they
Bill was
immediately
half of
rebuilt next year.
It's magic!
Okay, so that's also one of my big problems with the Harry Potter, not the movies, but the world. You have all of this fantastic fucking magic. There should not be poverty in this world whatsoever.
What do you mean? Okay.
Because consider, for instance, just a couple of the different fantastic visual effects that they use in Harry Potter, such as having a little-ass tent become a very big, spacious inside place, or where they gather with the Order of the Phoenix, where they can just magic madoodle themselves a apartment building. or
That's not
where they're
magic
going
madoodled.
down
That's
into
hidden.
the buildings unfold. That's the actual visual effect that they did.
Yeah,
It's
they
not like it
chose
was
that effect.
cloaked, right? But I mean, there's still these
Like-
things that are happening that you can have magic scrub your dishes, and there's magic scrubbing the Weasleys' dishes for
Yep.
like 3 movies in a row until the last movie when their house gets exploded, and for some reason now Mrs. Weasley needs to scrub her own dishes for no reason.
Sometimes they choose to do the hard work
Which
themselves.
doesn't make any
That's
fucking sense
fine.
with magic.
You can.
You know how many people wash their own dishes once they get a dishwasher? Fucking goose egg, that's how many.
Oh no, people still wash their dishes if they have a dishwasher.
And-
Not all of them, but they still do wash dishes.
It just doesn't make any sense. Also, okay, another thing is that the Philosopher's Stone, right?
Yes.
Is in history a piece of alchemic artifact that turns lesser metals into fucking gold.
And creates the elixir of life.
No, that comes alongside the alchemic
fine.
process. But
Okay,
the elixir
whatever.
of life had already supposedly at that point been consumed. But you have this magical artifact that doesn't seem to be diminishing, that you can just create gold. There's no reason for any of the wizards to be poor.
But
No.
it's
Whoa,
not.
hold on there,
whoa,
Tyler.
whoa! It's not the Wizarding World's rock. It belongs to Nicholas Flamel, and it was being kept safe.
Nicholas Flamel is an asshole then for reserving all of that potential wealth and having to make the Weasleys live in a giant boot. Their house looked like a boot. That's just kind of a visual thing on me, is that whenever I look at them, I just kind of look at Mrs. Weasley, and she's...
The
that's
little
old
old lady
woman.
who lived in a shoe.
Exactly.
No.
She kind of looks... That's
Hey,
just...
Tyler.
No.
That's something. That's
Do-
not a critique on the movie. I actually think that kind of feeling is kind of homey, and I like it. But yeah, go ahead, Mark.
You know, governments can print money, but there's still poor people, right?
Yeah, but you can if I was able to make bullion, like just shit out bullion, I
Sure.
could still trade that around, and I could go down to Mexico where there isn't any magic and trade that around, and then come back with other things. Like you wouldn't ever be hungry. The only things that I
Okay,
see
the hunger
in the,
thing is a different thing. You cannot create food.
but you could still,
It's one of the 7 laws of transfiguration. You cannot create it.
but you
That's
can
why
create
they-
gold, which then creates food. Which is my point. There's no reason to. The only things that I
Yeah,
see
okay, I
that are
kinda see where you're going.
necessarily, like, just abstractly make sense to be kind of upper class-ish are maybe owls and maybe wands. However, there's a caveat there where
Yeah, it's
people
11
use...
galleons or so, or 17 galleons for a wand.
So they're cheap.
No!
No? Okay. I don't know the... I'm sorry. Is the galleon up or down
Galleon
and
is the
compared to the
top
peso?
one.
Sorry. How many denarii do I need to make a galleon? So
Oh,
that's
man.
another thing is
There's
that
11 sickles to a
why
galleon?
the fuck
They chose
are
some really random
wands
numbers.
so
did.
expensive when you kind of need them for
'Cause-
magic?
because
kind
it's
of need them.
such
You
an
don't really do.
Because wand lore is so complicated that very few people can actually make wands. We have Ollivander, we have Gregorovich in Bulgaria or Romania
But you
area.
can
but, like,
produce them.
yeah, they do because the wand chooses the wizard. There's all this like wand lore is super complicated. They don't even try to delve into that too much, other than the wand chooses the wizard, and they can change their allegiance.
It just seems like a very unrealistic kind of niche part of the market that they have, where everyone can kind of have wands at Hogwarts because
They
they
pay-
need
Yes.
But so you can have all of these fucking students having, hoverboard-esque typed expensive ass wands going around and flitting their magic across. I mean, from what you're talking about here, it seems like Hogwarts shouldn't be this big castle, but rather kind of like a back room somewhere at Hogsmeade Tavern where they do magic in their spare time because no one can afford a fucking wand.
What?
I don't think there's any
I'm really
OSAP in the
confused, dude.
Wizardly
I'm
world.
really
I think
confused.
that
Actually, yeah,
if
they
everything
do
is
have
expensive, then the classes would just be like the school would be so much smaller if everything is so upper class. If you're going to a premier institution where you need, there's high tuition costs, there's high cost for equipment, you're going to naturally have a lot less students.
They didn't seem to talk about the tuition of like Hogwarts much, and I don't think there was any.
Tuition
there's
at
a point
Hogwarts,
there.
1 galleon.
Yeah,
You
no.
can, the real barrier of entry is if you can get a wand and an
they
owl
but they
and
have
some
mentioned
robes.
the fact that like they have supported, especially like Muggle-born families. They have to like go through a whole other process to kind of show them that yes, you can and there is a place in Gringotts where you can convert Muggle money into wizarding money. Yes, it's ridiculous, as our housemate Caitlin has mentioned out. It's ridiculous.
Offstage
But
Caitlin.
yeah. Yeah, the conversions are really, really weird. But yeah, so you can do that.
But
But
again, going to my original point,
Yeah, so that backs up his original point
alchemic
a lot.
stone, that shit's gold. There's no reason for the wizarding world to be poor. If I was Dumbledore, I'd be like, all right, friend, so I'll just keep this, and I'll make the whole entire wizarding world fantastic now. I'll just make gold, and everyone will have wands, and everyone will be fine. And no one will ever starve again.
But we don't do.
I think you
That
took
doesn't
that
make
the wrong
sense
way.
for
I don't know.
society. And that is not Dumbledore's focus.
I feel like
What is Dumbledore's focus? Can you explain that to me?
Wait a
That's
minute
something
here,
that
wait
I
a
haven't
minute,
really
wait a minute.
critiqued yet, but I don't understand it enough to critique it. He just fucking runs a school. Hi, Harry, I'm your best friend. I'm not going to talk to you for an entire year. Now I'm going to come back into like the
He
order
was
of
trying to protect
All
him.
right, you two. All right.
the cock block Harry, like at every
No.
turn.
One last
Protect
thing on
him.
wands here. Everybody seems to have a wand. Just saying.
Yes, because they save up because they know it's something that they'll need.
Also, I'd say like everyone in like university has like a smartphone or a laptop. That could be like a wand.
$1,000 for a wand.
Probably like in the same price point. I don't know.
Okay, so here's another thing with wands is that you don't necessarily need them to do magic. End of story, because people don't.
Yeah, it's
Th-
more
they-
controlled.
They don't use it. Okay, but that's another thing that's not really explained, especially in the books it might have been better explained. In the movies, magic isn't explained at all. Is there a mana reserve? Is magic some sort of otherworldly plane? Is it something that they tap into? A lot of things can kind of be explained with fan theories or just the suspension of disbelief. But if you're going to continue suspending my disbelief, if I'm going to have to continue to suspend my disbelief, something has to fucking make sense, or else I'm not going to have, again, any investment in the conflicts that are happening within these movies. If I don't know how the magic or any of the mechanics work, I can't invest or assume any sort of risks or stakes.
Okay, so how it works is like it seems to be partially genetically, like power levels of power.
There's some level of talent that's
there's
involved.
some level of natural talent that is inherited to a point. There's the whole like Muggle-born situation. Like, okay, so it might just be a mutation somewhere. So we have a little bit of that going on, but there's some element of genetics, because like Harry's parents were both great witch and wizard, so he had some natural ability. It's also a matter of practice. That's how somebody like Hermione worked her butt off and studied and got all the theory down, and like so Harry was better at like some spells off the bat with like his pure talent, but Hermione was able to practice her way up to that level. So like its capability, like you can practice as well as have the natural ability. So a bit of both. Matter of confidence and like, because Neville has the capability, but he didn't have the confidence for the longest time, but he was able to practice up to being able to do it.
So all of these are personal traits that make a lot of sense. So if we were to apply this to a regular life skill that goes to combat, we could maybe attribute this to firearms. It does take a certain amount of personal talent, like natural talent that you have. I'm personally now naturally talented at firing firearms. However, some friends that I've shot alongside have had to train at it for a long time to be good at it. There is a certain level of confidence in understanding how you're using that sort of weapon responsibly and in a way that works well. However, when you're taking that then into a combat situation, you need to understand what kind of guns are at play, what's going to shoot through what kind of calibers are which, and what the different sorts of magazine loads are going to be. So if you take a whole bunch of lower caliber guns into a fight and everyone has body armor, then you automatically know that you're needing to be more accurate to place a kill. Or if someone has armor-piercing rounds, suddenly that brings a different kind of conflict into a story that you could create a narrative from that very specifically within something like a Vice City kind of movie or a Vice detective movie where, oh shit, there's a sniper in the window who has armor-piercing rounds. Suddenly you know the field of combat, and you can better ascertain the risks and stakes that are involved in this conflict that would then be powered by a more built up narrative that's leading to that conflict. And one of my problems with magic in general in Harry Potter is that you see all of these lights kind of flashing back and forth. You see a whole bunch of really wonderful magic that builds up the world, and some of it just never ever comes back into play. There's a spell, for instance, that Hermione uses in the first movie that completely freezes up Neville Longbottom.
Yeah.
And you don't see that really awesome binding spell ever fucking again.
5th movie in the Hall of Prophecies.
Okay, so you see it once again. Is that even in the movies, though?
Yes.
Okay, well, good. So they used the one
Neville
really
did it,
awesome fucking
actually.
spell. All right, well, that's a little bit of a narrative thing that could be fun for people who are paying that much attention to the movies. But then you also see other things that are big problems, like the incredibly convenient plot device that is communication through fireplaces that Sirius Black uses twice, where some people could just use that sort of communication. There's no reason that you would ever not be able to tell anyone anything.
Unless the fireplaces are being watched, like in the 5th movie.
But, I mean, okay, so for very, very secretive parts of communication, but if someone just needs to know something
Yeah.
in the movie, there's no reason why you can't just be like, fucking fireplace, what's up?
The fireplace has to be connected to the Flu network. Like
But aren't all fireplaces connected to the Flu network?
Well,
You just
Muggle
need
house
Flu
it.
powder.
Not Muggle ones.
Well, how often are we in the Muggle world in Harry Potter?
I'm just clarifying that Muggle houses are not connected to the Flu network. That's why.
And then, of course, we also have a problem with the time turners. That's a huge thing. Not only
yeah,
that...
even J.K. Rowling picked up on that one
Yeah,
after
that
writing
one's
it.
really fucked up. My next big one is liquid luck.
Oh, that was just fun though.
That's the very wording in the narrative is that it's very difficult to produce.
Yes.
But that means you can produce that. That means there is a method by which someone could just be churning this shit out at some point.
Yes.
So why is it that this incredibly powerful liquid is just a single drop? There's no reason. After you build up the world of Harry Potter with all these magical spells and wonderful things, there's a whole bunch of evidence that the wizarding world shouldn't have any problems whatsoever.
But okay, we have the capability in our world to like fix a lot of people's problems, but there's a society here that just doesn't share it about. Why are you expecting the wizards to be such a perfect society?
You see, I understand that there is that sort of minimal flight from reality that we do sort of oppose on certain narratives. But when you're bringing out these different devices, there's less and less that we can assume about this kind of world, where if you're not explaining how these different mechanisms are working in the world and the different social classes and different social stigmas that would give us like confirmation that that world is exactly like our own. We can make assumptions like that,
There's the
but it's a
whole
completely
level
different
of,
world, right? It's a
yeah, but
wizarding world.
There's still the idea of classes brought in, like right from the beginning with Malfoy versus Ron. Like, oh yeah, red hair and a hand-me-down robe, you must be a Weasley. Like the talking down right from the get-go. Like there is a level of class that is established in the first movie.
Right, but you don't really see.
It's one of those breakneck scenes you go right by that you complain about all the time.
That is kind of one of the problems there is that
But if
some
you
of these
look at
scenes you
it-
can't catch because they're going so fast. But again,
No, they
you
spent a long
don't
time on
get
that one.
into that at all. You see a little bit of it, but you
And then
see
the
so minimal
racism
of it. It
comes
could just
in.
be Malfoy's family and like the evil rich wizards that are evil and shitty. And also, again, there's no reason for the people who aren't evil and shitty to have the same sort of access to magic, really.
No, but it's like as much as there's like okay, so Slughorn is like a really good potion master who can make who can make a potion like that. That's like a very high level potions that you'd really only have like the equivalent of university professors making. But like they don't always do that. They have other potions that they can be making. Why? Yeah, okay, liquid luck is great. It's illegal for a lot of things for that reason. Like you can't use it for anything that has like regulations or like a winner or anything like that. It has to be an average day. Essentially that you use it for. At least that was what was put on Harry for when to use that. It's also kind of talking about like it might but the way that they discuss it in the books more so, it's kind of like, yeah, you don't want to have this every day because then you crash afterwards if you have too much. Like
So that's
Harry
a great
took
explanation coming from the book. However, that's not addressed at all in the movie. He's just like liquid luck, and he takes them, and then he figures out
It was
all
needed-
of Tom Riddle's story.
No,
And
it wasn't
also, the
all
whole
of Tom-
existence of this liquid luck, also from a narrative standpoint, is an absolute Deus Ex Machina. The device from the god.
quietly explained beforehand.
Sorry?
Well, it's not Deus Ex Machina if it's quietly explained beforehand.
It's
They're like,
explained in the movie in a scene where it's like, here's liquid luck, and if you
It's a
use
prize.
this, it's a prize. And in the next scene following, they have the competition. Then Harry grabs the potion. There's a small intermission. Then Harry takes the potion
No.
and learns what goes on in the rest of the movie to advance the plot.
No. The whole like what the Felix Felicis is in like the first third, and definitely the finding out the information about Tom Riddle is like the last third. Like heading up for the conclusion, like we find that, and then we start looking into like going to get the Horcrux. That's what kicks off like the last bit, like the climax of the movie. The first bit, we have to have the whole tricking Ron into believing that he like we use Felix Felicis to trick Ron into thinking that he's taken liquid luck and doing really well at the Quidditch game.
bam,
So-
placebo effect.
Placebo
Except for that's
effect,
not in the
like-
movie.
Yes, it is.
No.
Yes.
No.
Hermione like challenges Harry that he put something in in Ron's drink, and Hermione's like, "Don't drink that, Ron," and then Ron drinks it. It's a great music montage for like watching the Quidditch scene. It's great music, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, they win. They're like Weasley's our king up on the shoulders."
I don't
and then
recall that at all, and probably the reason is because it was a throwaway Quidditch scene.
It wasn't. It was good. It was good Ron development. And then after the scene, like the
Ron
whole like
development.
Lavender like kissing like Ron, it like stems that, and then it was important. We have Felix Felicis being in a role that is not just for that aspect of the plot. Point made. Really long roundabout way, but like goodness gracious. Hermione brings it up, and
Also, this guy is like Felix Felicis. He's like the captain of the Quidditch team, right?
Felix Felicis
Yeah,
is
that
the
one.
name of the potion.
No, is it?
Yes.
Wait, Liquid Luck is called Felix Felicis?
Yes.
Why would they? That's too many names. Why would you give a potion two names?
It's like you call it the Polyjuice
What's the
potion.
name of the
it's
Quidditch-
the shape-shifting potion.
What's the name of the Quidditch captain?
Tyler, what's the name of the
in the
muscles
sixth
on
movie,
your
it's
back?
Harry Potter.
The name of the muscles on my
Yeah.
back. You have the erector spinae muscle, which runs up your
You realize
spine.
they also all have fancy Latin names, right?
The erector spinae is the Latin
Exactly,
one.
but it's your back
You
muscle.
can call them your lats.
But for the
you can
mat-
call them your latissimus dorsi if you want. I mean, like, everything's got two names.
Well, that's a
'Cause
short
there's just
form of
regular
that word.
names.
If it
So
was called
Felix
And then-
Felicis is the fancy name.
If it was just called
Liquid Luck is-
Felices, then it would be like, all right, fine, that's a short form, but you're going to call me Felix Felices, which
That's the full name.
sounds like cat shit.
Felix Felicis is the proper title for it. That doesn't actually tell you much about what the potion does, so they
the
nicknamed it
liquid
Liquid Luck.
luck just comes off as this huge plot device that's just, all right, let's get some information in here conveniently. And that's also one of my big problems with the Harry Potter series as a whole, is everyone's kind of conveniently around and within earshot of information that furthers the plot. The first couple of movies in particular are just fraught with scenes where they're somehow in Diagon Alley, which is somehow within...
What do you mean there's somehow in Diagon Alley?
Well, the very first Harry Potter movie has Harry Potter going through the Sloo Schmloo network.
No,
with
that's the second.
Sneeze dust.
Flu powder through the
Yeah,
Flu
that one.
network in the second.
Going to Diagon Alley. And
Nocturne Alley.
well, he ends up there, but he's
Yes.
trying to go to Diagon Alley. And how in any ways does Diagon Alley, in
Diagon
some sort, well, the way that he mispronounces it, end you up in Nocturne Alley? Linguistically, that just doesn't make sense. He should have ended up somewhere in like Louisiana. Let's be honest.
Oh boy.
But then he's just kind of conveniently within earshot of the Malfoys being evil. Oopsie. Or when he's constantly in the Order of the Phoenix, he's just kind of constantly somehow around Snape as he's kind of being evil. Whoa, what's going
No,
on?
the whole fifth movie was that he thought that, wait, no, wasn't the 5th. The 6th movie was when
Sure, whichever one it is that he takes the unbreakable oath, which is totally breakable.
the 6th movie, he was always around Snape when Snape was being evil because he thought that Malfoy was a Death Eater. So he was tracking Malfoy, and Snape was trying to help Malfoy. So then we saw Snape with Malfoy being evil.
Excuse the fact that continues to be a plot device throughout the movies, is that someone's just kind of conveniently within earshot of someone. And even in the movies, for instance, the first time it happened, Snape goes, "The conversation isn't safe here," and then scuttles away. And then Harry just kind of, I guess I'm going to follow him. And then Snape doesn't know magically still that he's being listened into? Okay. Just, it continues to be a thing throughout the series.
Oh,
Which, of course, is absolutely not helped when it's kind of improved upon when he gets the magic cloak. He's like, I guess I'm just going to put this bullshit on, and now I don't even need to be conveniently in the area. I'll just stand around and listen to assholes. I'll learn everything.
Because by the time he's 16, he has spent this is the 6th year in the Wizarding world, and he has spent 5 years so far saving it and doing good, and he thinks that somebody's a Death Eater, especially his number one enemy in school who pisses
Which
him
is
off
set up in the
all
Quidditch
the
matches.
time. So why would you not try to find proof to prove to people that this guy is evil, he's doing bad things, we need to stop him?
But he doesn't have a camera or a microphone.
Because they don't work at Hogwarts.
Well,
Muggle technology does not work at Hogwarts. Electronics, not working.
doesn't make any fucking sense. Why not?
All the magic in the air with all the people doing magic.
Oh, so magic somehow has
no,
some sort of...
magic leaves a trace.
What?
It does. It leaves a trace. That's how
Well,
Dumbledore was able
it's
to know
somehow-
that there's magic here.
It somehow just mixes with electricity and stops it from
And all
shutting
the
down?
spells that you're trying to protect Hogwarts with.
So is electricity a spell now? It's just Muggle magic? We're just
No.
like, bzzz, we can now use electricity and somehow regular magic negates it? Doesn't quite make a lot of sense.
No, but
they just
stuff
say
goes
that,
haywire.
right?
Sensors go haywire.
But do they ever really explain why that is? They never
No,
say,
we
oh,
just
this is
know
why
that
magic...
bugging somebody with a microphone like Harry thought that Rita Skeeter was doing. That's what jump-started Hermione thinking, oh wait, she's the Beetle.
You see,
That was
one
never
of my-
mentioned in the movie. Sorry,
Another
guys.
problem immediately arises from that because not only did I not know that, someone who's watched the films, I've seen that continuously brought up as a joke concerning the Harry Potter world is just bring in cell phones and shit, or how cool would it be to see, wizards with iPads or stuff like that.
It doesn't work that way.
It's not explained well enough, obviously, or explained
because
frequently
Hermione
enough.
brings it up at least 4 times in the book series.
In the
because
books.
Nobody reads
Bad
Hogwarts
movies.
history.
Bad movies.
No, because
Bad.
it's not that.
Okay, so here's my last
bad.
gripe. And I think this is a very
Well,
serious
what was the
gripe.
gripe we were just over? Because honestly, I feel like you've muddled the point. I'm not sure.
The first movie has a really bad pace.
Okay.
That's our first point.
Okay. No, I don't mean your first point. I mean the point you just made and moved on from.
Listen, dude, I'm 2 or 3 glasses into my whisky right
Okay,
at this point.
that's
I don't.
fine.
We're kind of moving. I make
Continue,
a point,
final
and then she
gripe.
argues the point. Okay, final point. Hogwarts is a shitty school. Hogwarts is a shitty, unsafe school, and none of the teachers give a flying fuck if a student gets broken or eaten or if there's trolls in the dungeon. No one gives a single flying fuck.
Okay.
Which
The
if we're
troll in
going
the
to-
dungeon was let in by somebody who had Voldemort on the back of his head. Not a good teacher trying to keep students safe.
I'd like to go back
Not a
to
good
one of my original alternate titles, which is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Shit that keeps trying to kill students, but Hogwarts
It
stays
was
open
a
anyways.
myth. They didn't believe it existed.
Except
they
for 4
searched.
people are put into the infirmary afterwards, and that asshole's cat gets killed and blood gets smeared on the wall. At that point, you need to be launching some serious investigations, and even Dumbledore says Hogwarts isn't safe here, or McGonagall says we need to get the students out, but they never fucking do.
They try to find the chamber, and they have no idea where the entrance
Over
to
the
this
course of
chamber
a
is.
fucking year after students are getting snapped and snipped.
Yes,
And
unfortunately,
that's just
the case.
one single movie. Throughout the movie, you have students continuously being put into danger. After Cedric Diggory got offed in Goblet of Fire, Hogwarts should have been shut the fuck down. They should have been
He
like,
wasn't on school
no.
property.
But
It
it was a
wasn't his
school
fault.
event. If I went from one high school to another with my fencing league and I got shanked That would be it. There'd be no more fencing. Or if I went someplace and I was...
They thought that the Twilight Tournament was much safer. They had discontinued it before
How,
because
though?
people were getting...
Because immediately Dumbledore
Because
sees that
originally
Harry
those-
Potter's name gets put in the Goblet of Fire, and he's like, well, this shit's fucked up.
Yeah, but it's a magical binding contract that he has to participate.
That's why we have to do the children murder stabby games anyways. Let's throw them in with dragons. It'll be great. That sounds safe.
No, but they
Shitty
they
ass
had
school.
People, they had dragon... No, I don't want to call them dragon tamers, but like wizards like Charlie Weasley, the guy you never really meet in the movies, who's like...
Oh, really? Tell me more about how great these movies are and how safe the Goblet of Fire
they
is.
have people can help...
Let's
like,
put them underwater
to
and hope
keep-
the kids can breathe.
They didn't force them to go underwater. They had a challenge to go underwater and breathe for an hour. There was the bubble head charm that 2 of them used. Crumb turned into a shark.
And then what would have happened then to their dear old friends and
Nothing!
significant others? It would have been eaten by mer people.
No, nothing would have happened. Harry was the only one who was too chivalrous to leave somebody behind because he took the threat seriously.
Yeah,
It
okay.
was-
Also,
Dumbledore was talking
their
to the mer
administration,
people.
absolute shit. And it's proven by probably just one really shitty example
Which
of
one? The
law.
administration?
The administration?
The administration of Hogwarts.
I'm
How
listening.
is one of the most powerful and one of the wisest and one of the best golly good genius wizards, Dumbledore. How did fucking Lockhart get under his radar when he obviously doesn't have any magical potential?
Okay, the job
Arthur
is cursed.
Weasley would have been a better defense against the dark
and
arts
he wasn't
teacher.
applying for the position.
I don't believe you.
He wasn't.
I believe
He's
that
happy in
Arthur
his
would have
ministry
been in
job.
that
He loves his
employment
ministry
job day one.
It's great.
The way that Hogwarts operates with how many fatalities and Dementors and dark shit that happens in that
Okay,
school.
the Dementors were forced on
If it
to them
wasn't
by
that
the government.
Umbridge was a shitty human being, I would have been like, Ministry of Magic, you got to get in here and regulate. Holy crap.
They tried to interfere at Hogwarts and gave us Umbridge.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It's better than keeping a basilisk in your basement.
They didn't know it was there.
Chamber
Hermione
of-
figured it out.
Except for McGonagall goes, the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. In the movie, she says those words.
Yes, it's true.
Yes, because that was on the wall. That was what they figured out. It's been threatened 50 years ago with the whole idea.
And McGonagall is an old shit. She
No,
knows
she just
lots of
knows her
stuff.
history.
Lots and lots of stuff. She knows lots of stuff. Hogwarts,
she there?
dangerous,
She
shitty
might-
ass school.
She wasn't a teacher at the time. I
Should
don't
have
believe.
had like the ministry in there regulating and shutting that shit down before.
All right, but I mean, like, what was the other two? There was like a good comparison online between Hogwarts, Xavier's school, and like the X-Men, and like
Oh, yeah, I saw it,
Peregrine's
yeah.
school or
I
whatever.
think Film
Oh my
Theory did one
God.
on it.
Yeah, and they just like they all kind of suck, but actually Hogwarts might be the best. Sorry, guys.
Well, yeah.
At least they have qualified teaching staff that like know how to teach their
Besides
spells and
Lockhart.
stuff. Well,
Okay,
yeah, except for
Lockhart had fooled the entire wizarding
And also,
world.
they're like always on more than one occasion, they're infiltrated by like evil magicians. With like Mad Eye Moody's double, what's his face? What was played by David Tennant? That's
Barty Crouch
one.
Jr.
And then whichever the face Mr. Turban had in the first movie.
Quirrell.
That's
Quirrell was a teacher, or like was going to be a teacher,
and
he
he
just
had
hap-
Satan in his back, like head face thing. He was a another defense against the dark
Yes,
arts
he had been-
teacher, right?
Yeah, he'd been
And
studying in
again,
Albania
another
and, like,
evil shit. That's 3 times that the administration
Well,
at,
I thought that was
at
twice.
Okay, wait,
Hogwarts.
go-
well,
like-
I'm including in fucking up, just like fucking up, also including Lockhart. But then the
But
2
they-
times infiltration by dark
okay,
evil
2
wizards.
times evil, 1 time fuck up.
Yeah. Also, what is Lockhart doing? I mean, he's so famous and rich
I know,
and
why
made up to
teach
be. Why
school?
would he be at Hogwarts? Especially when he knows he can't do anything real.
because he
Why would he put himself
starts
in
to
such a
believe his
vulnerable-
own story. He thinks
Okay.
he's great. He thinks he's amazing.
I'll take that.
And
I don't
he's
think
gonna-
that that's necessarily explained in the movies, but I'll take that as a legitimate reason.
He's like, oh, I'm doing so good. It's gonna look so
Good
good
psychology.
for my image to just like teach the young ones all my great knowledge
Yeah.
that I've illegally gathered from all these other people who've done these great things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in closing, Harry Potter school is crazy. You go
But
through
needed for the students.
365 days of.
No.
You go from like early in the summer until the
No.
end of the school year.
September
in
1st.
2 hours and a half. Christmas is always a surprise when you get to that movie, which is, Christmas is always kind of a surprise even in the real world, so maybe I'll forgive that. But it's kind of like, here's the story, here's the story, here's the story. Christmas, by the way, it's awesome. Oh, wait, I have one more small gripe. This is just the last moment, is that also going with Hogwarts' shitty institution, they continued to send Harry back to his shitty abusive family. For 5 movies.
They have to.
5 years.
No. That is important because the protection of his mother's love is only going to work if he goes back to a place where her love still calls home. So the fact that Aunt Petunia still lives at 4 Privet Drive, Harry has to return there because that's still his home. Even though he doesn't really like it his home, he has to go back there for the protection against Voldemort to work.
When is that said in any of the movies? Is that said before the 5th movie?
No.
Is that said in any of the movies?
So
instead of explaining that as a very crucial part of how magic works, which is another critical failing of the series as a whole, except for they actually had a legitimate reason of explaining the magic, they're just like, yeah, we'll just go send him to go and, live in a cupboard and get shit on and beaten by his family.
He was out of the cupboard
Is
after
there
the
not
first
like
movie.
a wizard CPS that we can call for Harry where he can go and be taken to a nice wizarding family instead of,
No, there was that was... People wondered why he wasn't initially dropped off with the Weasleys because they would have totally cared for him. But
Absolutely would have.
But Dumbledore made his choice
Wonderful
to
redheaded family.
try to keep him out of the
Family
public
of redheaded
eye, and
stepchild children.
it's important for him to be raised with his own family, and he had hopes for them. And he didn't know it was going to be abusive, but it was for his own protection because that location was protected from Voldemort. But
No, I'm gonna accept that as we'll drop this person off here as a baby. That seems like a fine answer. Oh yeah, well that's their family. Okay, it's shitty, but oh well. But after first year and stuff, I can't even take that as an answer, especially because
even if it is a
at the end of
legitimate
the first
answer, it's a
movie-
shitty answer.
he's protected there. Voldemort can't come knocking on the door.
No, he murderizes Voldemort with his hands in the first movie, and then
That was the whole,
that shtick's done.
Yeah.
That was the one time. That was the thing.
But they still didn't believe that, they didn't think that Voldemort was completely gone. They were being more protective.
Well, I mean, they protected him all the other times once he moved, but
Yeah.
whatever.
He didn't. What do you mean once he moved?
Well, when they all flew him out of the house and shit.
Yeah, but he still had to go back and spend time at Privet Drive every summer.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why that is.
Because it was part of the protection spell that would break when he was 17 or when he no longer called that place home.
Who put the projection spell there?
Dumbledore, I think.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of like Dumbledore.
Man, Dumbledore is a shit.
I mean, you gotta move that protection anywhere.
I think it was Dumbledore.
If Harry's really
I
worth
realize
it,
I might not be
you
right
know,
on that one, but
whatever.
Dumbledore is a shit.
he
Yeah.
was.
So in the end, Harry Potter is a wonderful wizarding world that is an absolutely great unfurling landscape that is spelled out in the books. Unfortunately, the movies kind of leave a little too many questions
that are
be
answered by
asked
the books.
that are answered by the books, but don't quite make their way to the movie. And one of the things that I definitely see as a critical failing of Harry Potter is the tragedy in which the books aren't very well adapted to the screen. Because a real adaptation that's done well is going to understand, fall in love with, and come to a complete comprehension of the source material. And then it doesn't really become an adaptation at that point, but rather becomes its own living narrative in the medium that it's intended, in this case, film. A really good writing staff and a really good director for these movies would have been completely in love with this series, which I think there's a lot of justification for their saying there being a lot of love. I think that it's a very wonderful series. J.K. Rowling definitely poured her own heart into it, which is reflected on the page and definitely reflected in the fandom. It's a shame that that kind of love didn't find its way into the writing room. I don't feel like people went with the intentionality of making a good film. They wanted to make a Harry Potter movie. And while that sort of desire is definitely very innocent, I think it betrays, in the end, the very important parts of the stories that bring the readers to the book in the first place. And in the end, kind of damage the films overall.
I guess there's two different ways of putting it, because I guess that there are also some people in the fandom that believe that if we got a TV series we and had like one chapter per episode, we'd all be extremely happy.
Well, you would have more time for that then, which would allow you to be able to put more of the source material on the
Exactly.
screen. But again, still, in order to be able to make a good television series for Harry Potter, you would still need the same sort of love and adoration and understanding of the medium that you're working with, and able to correctly show the transformation of it being a novelized narrative to a television narrative, which is distinctively different from both a book and a movie. So yeah, it would be great to have that sort of thing, but I think that, and I would also like to just kind of give some credit to Harry Potter in saying that if we didn't have the Harry Potter movies made when they were in the early 2000s, stretching onwards, of course, I don't think we would be in the same great place that we are now with Marvel movie adaptations being so great. We all recently saw Doctor Strange. Fantastic movie.
Yep.
Visually good, good narrative, really great adaptation. And I think that a lot of people who are putting their great words down in books are now finding their way to the big screen with a relative amount of success. If Harry Potter were made nowadays, I feel like people would have an understanding well enough of how to make movies from books and source material that they would have been great films. Unfortunately, when I watch Harry Potter's, I come apart with questions and I feel emotionally empty, which understanding the culture and the love for Harry Potter surrounding it, because I didn't grow up with it as a child, makes me feel hyper aware of that kind of emptiness that I come away from with those films.
And I feel like the movies were made for the lovers of the books rather than, like, I feel like that was where they were coming from, which, and it's great. Like, that movie series is great to watch as a lover of the books. And
Yeah.
you can see the holes, or you can see, like, what they didn't cover, but you have a further understanding, especially for the later books where, like, they really cannot put all that detail in. You have the background knowledge of, like, the fact that Dobby went and worked at Hogwarts. Like, you know that. So you know that Harry had interaction with him all the way through his school
Had
year.
no idea. Dobby worked at Hogwarts. I thought
Yeah,
he got
and
a sock and he just kind of pieced out
No,
until he got
worked at
stabbed.
Hogwarts for wages.
He shows
in
up
the
in Deathly
kitchens.
Hallows, and it's like, where the fuck has Dobby been this entire time, and why is he with Hermione? And then they're on a beach, and Dobby's like, no, oh
Dobby
no,
was
Dobby,
actually-
I don't give a fuck. Cause
Dobby was supposed to be the one to give him the gillyweed, not Neville.
yeah, I
So,
like
like,
Neville though.
So
I like that
there was-
character. I'm okay with writing
There was a
Dobby
little
out with
bit
more
of
Neville.
like, there was picks in, like, there's
If Neville
pick and
died, I'd be
chooses.
very upset.
I think like everybody would be.
Yeah,
Um,
good character,
Yeah, so
good side character. Lots of.
he was the alternate chosen one. It was
Yeah,
kinda
that would
great.
be good. I've seen that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Neville's probably actually one of the best built characters in Harry Potter, I would dare say, because every time Neville's there in the story, you're directly dealing with him as a person.
Yeah, and
And there's no plot devices that really cross Neville. He's there being Neville. You understand what he's good at. He likes herpetology.
herbology.
That one. He's kind of shy, and then he kind of grows up, gets hot, takes out Voldemort. It's great.
Takes out the snake that takes out Voldemort.
Yeah,
okay.
well,
But yeah, no, like, he had a really true, like, coming of age story through, like, even more so than, like, because Harry had such a burden on him, and, like, of, like, this whole responsibility, finding out he was the chosen one. Like, he was forced to grow up too soon, almost, in the sense, like, here's a new world. We need, basically, by the end of the time you're 11, we need you to save it again. They don't force it on him, but, like, he realizes,
I would have
like,
taken the galleons and run.
where?
Any of the other magical worlds that are around that obviously exist that you find out in Goblet of Fire. Did you check out all those French magic babes?
You think that this guy who lived in Little Whinging and never got to go anywhere, really?
I'm sure he's had a suite once before. If he sees that much gold, he's just like 86 in it out of there. There's got to be a Gringotts ATM somewhere out in Frenchy Cute Land.
Oh, boy. He's 11!
Yeah, that's what I would have done when I was 11.
Okay.
I would have pieced the fuck out.
Harry had a very different childhood than you.
Yeah, I wasn't put in a cupboard. I was just poor. Anyways, I think that is a pretty nice ending to a wonderful conversation.
It's pretty good, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Mark, did you have any closing comments on Harry Potter?
Closing comments that I was kind of thinking of interjecting, but then I was like, no, I'll stay out of this. We were talking about wands and why everyone doesn't have wands, and why they're difficult to make, I think. And it harkens back to the only spells I know, which are Dungeons and Dragons and those kind of spells, and I'm just like, expensive material components. Wands aren't easy to make. You got to go kill phoenixes and dragons and unicorns to make them.
Or ask really nicely.
Yeah, there's that, I guess. But like,
Okay, the dragon heartstring, different story. But like the unicorn hair,
I just want your heartstring.
yeah. So
you don't have to kill the unicorn.
yeah. So
It's
a
really
little-
bad.
okay, a little bit difficult to get. I get that. Mass production of the luck elixir. Yeah, I suppose technically possible, but again, I'd harken back to expensive
Ingredients.
material components.
One of my things, though, with the wands, though, that you just kind of brought up is that you're like, all right, expensive and complex
Sure.
materials, and the idea that the wand chooses the user. That's obviously not true because Voldemort takes Malfoy's wand and produces murder with that wand. You see in the first...
he's a very powerful wizard. It won't work as well as his initial wand, but he borrowed Malfoy's wand. Actually, took it,
But
whatever.
in the room of requirement, Harry grabs Hermione's wand and uses that, and he's not
No,
necessarily an
it
incredibly...
does- it doesn't
he does
work-
in the book. I mean, he does in the movie.
It doesn't work as well as his other one.
Not in the room of requirement. It's actually Prisoner of Azkaban. He grabs it off of Hermione and whatever the Expelliarmus spell, he hits Snape out of the way in the Prisoner of Azkaban when Snape and
because
all of them
that's
are there.
like his actually okay. When they all three of them or two of them use Expelliarmus on Snape at the same time, that's why it was so powerful and knocked him out.
No,
Even-
it was just one. It was just one on Snape at one point. And it's like a big-ass Expelliarmus that hits him.
Yes, because that's like his spell that he's really good at.
So what I'm
And,
trying
like,
to
you
say is
can-
that
you
maybe
can
you
use
couldn't
them.
do...
No. The wands will work for different people, but they won't work as well.
So that's exactly it. So
It's a
not every
proficiency.
people need a $3,000 gaming PC. Some people just need a little shitty netbook. That's fine for a lot of people in the computing world. So in the wizarding world, why can't people just have basic wands?
They get hand-me-downs.
Yeah, no.
They
that's a good
do.
point. Sure they
Ron
do.
got a hand-me-down.
Yeah, so
And
hand-me-downs exist.
it kind of worked. It also indicated why he wasn't too great in the
But
first
it doesn't
two.
seem like they're necessarily hard to produce for just basic wands. Okay, maybe it's not going to be great. You're not going to be able to Crucio or Avada People. But
Not that you'd want to.
you could do basic spells that people would be learning in
But
their
okay.
classes. So when Ron's wand breaks, Hogwarts should have been like, here's a fucking loner, kid. We know you're broke. Instead of him having a backwardsy-ass wand that ends up being kind of a lame plot device later on.
Makes him eat slugs. Like, what lame plot device are you talking about?
I'm talking about Lockhart using it against himself. He
'kay.
didn't need to be in there at all. It was just a reveal that Lockhart's an asshole, but we already knew that within the first couple of scenes of seeing him.
Yeah, but
So-
actually, okay, Lockhart was supposed to lose his memory, and he did, and he was supposed to come back later. It was supposed
He
to
never
be
came back later, though.
He was supposed to.
And he shouldn't have, because it was a
No.
shitty-ass character.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of glad they didn't. But that was supposed to be when you met Neville's parents. It was so
Which would have been
touching.
great, but I feel like
Yeah.
with the way that Harry
And there
Potter's
was
done, they
another
would have
plot,
fucked him up.
and there was another little foreshadowing thing that you figured out later. Like that was great, but nobody really cared about the guy who got killed by Devil's
Anyway,
Snare.
so that's my point about wands, is that,
Anyways, yeah.
sure, maybe you're not going to get a Phoenix Feather wand like Harry and Voldemort have, but
Yeah,
that's it, right?
rare. That's rare. Yeah,
But still,
from the same Phoenix. Yeah.
maybe you get a Raven Feather wand, and that sucks, but you can
That's not a
still
magic-
run...
That's not a magical core. That
It's a
doesn't
joke.
Work. Okay.
It's a joke. I'm joking. Maybe you can still run Windows 8 on your Raven Core wand. Also, okay, one last thing. Fucking Slytherin, right? Why does Hogwarts... This goes back to Hogwarts as a shitty school kind of thing, is why do they have a bully fraternity where they're just like...
They are a boy fraternity.
Bully
Bully. okay?
fraternity, where the Sorting Hat's just
they
like,
aren't.
hello, destinedly evil kid. Welcome to this fraternity of assholes. Enjoy your time, you little shit. And I don't care how they're portrayed in the books. That's absolutely 100% how they're portrayed in the movies, especially up
Yes,
to the
because
last
you
one,
have to have
where
somebody
all the
that all these
Slytherins are
Gryffindors
put
are
into the
against.
dungeon. How racist is that?
There has
It's
been
pr-
complaints
it's pretty
about
much
that.
internment there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
okay, that's fair. That's an indication of the society. It's like, oh, look, all these evil people are from Slytherin. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit like, okay, we're going to be a little bit racist.
Let's
back
lock
to
all
you.
the Slytherins into the dungeon. Everyone in the dungeon, kids. McGonagall, you're such a tolerant, wonderful individual. I know.
But it was because you didn't also. Did you really want to put up this kid to put them in the situation where they might have to kill their parent? No!
Wait, what? What?
A lot
Presumably,
of the parents,
all the Death Eaters are Slytherin.
So a lot of the Slytherin
Presumably.
students, their parents are out there trying to like.
That I don't buy that for a second. The reason
No,
they
I
locked
don't
them in the dungeon is because all the Death Eaters are Slytherin, and they don't want the Slytherins having yet another kind of coup from within. They didn't do that to protect the kids from having to slaughter their parents.
And
They
you
put
didn't
the
want them to
Slytherin in the
leave.
dungeon so that they didn't do more evil shit or join the evil people and they'd have to strike down more wizards. It was completely self-serving, completely justified in the face of the reality of it, still racist.
It was
Shitty ass situation there where the Sorting Hat's like, you're a
Not
shit.
all of them-
Goodbye.
No, Slughorn was Slytherin, and he wasn't completely evil. It's not like
evil.
it's
The teacher,
It's
please.
a little bit of it's a little bit of like he
He's a
was
part
a
of the
Slytherin
shitty-
as a kid as well.
Okay.
But anyways, it's a little bit of self-fulfilling
Philosophy.
prophecy
Prophecy.
is
Philosophy.
what I'm looking for.
Velociraptor.
Anyways, so like okay, they have a rep. So like they've had like after the Battle of Hogwarts, they'll have to break that rep, and that was addressed a little bit in the Cursed Child. So like yes, they have a negative rep with like who's coming out of there and who's becoming famous coming out of there, but they're not all bad. It just so happens that from our story, from Harry's point of view, yes, Slytherin is evil. It basically has Malfoy, it has Voldemort.
But that's not
like,
how it's treated at all in the movies. They might as well be walking around with swastikas on their heads because all of these little shits, almost every single time, I'm going to say every single time you see a Slytherin kid, they're doing something shitty. I cannot, unless you're pointing out like set dressing where there's an extra put into a Slytherin gown who's just kind of walking through a line. I'm sure they're still like choking kittens underneath their robe because they're so all typecast. So that's my last gripe until I come up with something else.
No, that seems.
But it's also it's the whole idea of house rivalry as well. Like we're seeing a lot of it from the point of view of the Gryffindors, and like that rivalry just runs
Also,
thick.
Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff kind of get the short stick with that entire thing. They're just
Hufflepuff
like,
gets the shortest, but it's unfortunate. That's why Cedric Diggory is from Hufflepuff. They're trying to bring up their
Is he?
population.
Okay, cool.
Yes, and so is Nymphadora
good thing they
Tonks, if
kill
you
him
care.
off at the end of Goblet of Fire. In the murder games. Good call, Hogwarts.
It wasn't their fault.
Oh,
It wasn't.
I suppose that makes it all okay.
It doesn't.
Let's
but,
go and
like,
hold our fun intramural contest.
Yeah, I have my own gripes with all that, but
All right.
no, you
Well,
have to,
Some of the
I won't
changes
go
that
there.
they made were not the best.
I
But
won't-
that's exactly what I'm saying, is some of the changes they made are not the best, which makes it a shitty film.
It's not a shitty film, though.
No,
I'll
I don't-
agree, though. The third movie, like, that one, like, it's a great movie on its own. I agree, but before my 9th birthday party, where I watched that on opening night, for the whole month before, I read that book back to front. Like, in the sense of, like, I would finish the book and literally flip back to page 1 and start all over again.
Yeah.
And I read it 5 times at the age of 9. Like, it was so ingrained, that story. And then I go and watch my favorite book in movie form, and they change the plot. Like, it's not all of it, but, like, some of, like, the whole firebolt was supposed to come at Christmas, not at the end. Harry was
Christmas
supposed
comes like a surprise, just like the firebolt.
yeah, but it was like there's a lot of
Fucking
stuff that
plot,
like
plot,
should have
plot, plot,
happened
plot,
and it
Christmas.
didn't. And it was like, okay, I understand why they didn't. Like the whole meeting Cho Chang didn't happen, and that was supposed to be like Harry starting to be interested in girls, and that didn't.
You know what's
happen.
also shitty?
But it like
Is
after
that
I got
they go
over
down
it,
to
it was good.
Hogsmeade in the first book, and they're like, you need your parents' permission to go
Third.
down to Hogsmeade,
Third.
Harry, but you don't have any parents. Bye, Harry.
that isn't.
no,
Is
he's
that in the
supposed.
third?
It's the
Third
third.
book?
He's supposed to get
Wow, they're
signed by.
still fucking dragging on Harry Potter for not having parents in
He's
the third book.
Dursley is Vernon is supposed to Uncle Vernon is supposed to sign it, but they use it as a bargaining chip over him behaving nicely with Marge. But then he blows up Marge for calling his dad an alcoholic.
Was that the one where he like throws her up into the stratosphere?
Yeah, by accident.
That's kind of a great film because not only does he lose an aunt, he also loses.
She gets saved by the Ministry of Magic,
Yeah,
and
I'm
her
it's
memory is
on off screen.
erased.
It's great.
Pardon?
Anyways, hey Mark, have you ever? So wait, I've never taken. Have you taken the Pottermore test? Both of you? Have you taken the Pottermore
Yes.
test, Mark?
Oh, I think I took a shortened version.
Shortened
I
version.
was like,
How many questions is in the Pottermore test?
A lot.
Because I've taken
I
a
think there's about
quiz to
48
determine
or
my house, but
49, I
I'm
think.
wondering.
There's a lot.
I'll be
49.
honest, I got like 12, 12, 12, and 13 for
Okay.
like the point roundabouts. So I'm like, okay, I'm not even gonna.
Well, how about for the end of the podcast, we just go through and we tell everyone who's what houses we're in. Mark, you can start first.
I've always wanted to be in Raven Badger. So it's like
Raven
a badger,
badger?
mixed with a raven.
The
Because
honey badger.
Yeah, mixed with a raven, so it can fly and
That's
it's
So
great.
it's
Ravenclaw
amazing.
So which
and
one-
Hufflepuff.
Which one
Yeah.
are you though? When you took
I
the quest?
just float. I wouldn't even care.
Yeah, you'd float. So it's like you would just
I-
wear like
yeah.
little patches everywhere.
Yeah,
Mark
I just
hasn't
wear a
actually
Huff-
taken the Pottermore test
Oh, okay.
I
yet.
have actually.
The Pottermore one? Oh yeah, no, I
Yes.
made you do it.
Yes,
What
I
did you get?
I don't know. I know I got like 12 in all the ones. I got
The
13.
Pottermore
no,
test
no, no,
was
no.
like
You didn't do
13
the
in one of the other
no, it
ones.
wouldn't tell. That's not the Pottermore test. That was a
Well-
random one that we made you do in the
Oh,
back of a car.
I'm sorry.
So
I don't know then.
So no, you had. I don't.
I
think
guess
I made you do
instead
it
of
in the
wearing like a
Pottermore.
college scarf like we do at Trent, I'd just wear like a Trent sweatshirt. So I'd wear like a Hogwarts
Trent
sweatshirt.
one.
And like I
They don't
know
wear
where- I don't know
sweatshirts.
where
They have
I'd-
uniforms. You know that, right?
They wear
Oh,
sweatshirts.
sorry, a
I've seen
badge,
sweatshirts.
whatever.
Ah.
That happened in like Goblet of Fire. You see, like Cedric Diggory has like a
Yes,
vest or
when
sweater
they
or whatever.
do dress down and wear Muggle clothes sometimes, but they have a uniform.
You
Yeah,
you
okay,
barely see the
whatever.
robe
I would
ever.
wear my uniform
It's
and
like
it would have the
first, second
Hogwarts
movie,
crest
that's
on it
it.
instead of the.
And third.
Yeah.
And fourth. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you just keep talking. You know? Yeah, I don't know.
Don't know. Okay, that's fine. And Patricia, what house
So
are you
I
in?
always thought I was going to be Ravenclaw, but then when I took the Pottermore test, I was Gryffindor, and I even more so identified with
so
Hermione.
happy.
So happy. I have a scarf, as in the picture of that. If you guys are watching, like that scarf was made by my grandmother. The hat was made by my mom. I have the tie. I've had my wand since I was 11. Like very much like.
Just
Gryffindor
waiting for
to
the
core.
owl now, folks.
Oh yes, just waiting for that owl.
Just waiting for the owl. Okay, wait. One last thing. Why are they still using owls when you have like little memo airplanes that could totally take care of that shit? Why
That
would
is
you?
a far distance for a little memo airplane.
It's magic. Why does it matter?
to deal with wind.
I thought the owl dropped it
magic.
off.
Do they? When you
I
see
thought
them in
maybe.
like
Might have just
Harry
been an
Potter and
airplane
the
that sailed
bureaucracy
in, yeah.
exposition
Oh
movie.
no, the little memo,
I
the
think those
airplane
were
memos
internal mail,
yeah,
you know?
internal mail because they used to use owls, but then the mess
No
was
mail
terrible.
room in the Ministry of Magic. Yeah. Okay.
They did mention that in
Cutesy.
the movie.
That's true.
I
They
liked
did.
it.
You know, the
That's cool.
owl droppings everywhere. That was terrible. So they used the
What
little
are you thinking, Tyler?
interdepartment memos.
What
What's
was mine?
your house? What's your favorite
My house?
character?
Well, I'm American, so my house was Alpha Sigma Dong. Good night, everybody.